Hey, what is happening? TSL Life, week 2 of our phase 1 ambition. As you know me, Steve Maeda, we are all a big group. And hey, let me tell you guys what this is about. What TSL Life is about is how we can be that better man. You know, TSL Online, the social dynamic to be the better man. Here in TSL Life, we're examining these things of how we can truly evolve to be that. Man, it's pretty amazing. That's what we're here doing. And when we're on this journey, when all of us unified as this group of men that we have here at TSL Life, it's pretty awesome. Man, we work it so much better if we're all on the same journey, if we're doing it together. Okay, so unity, so important here. On this week, last week we covered some stuff on how we're going to define our ambition. We talked a lot about it on the calls. We workshopped it. This is something that is going to be a journey. I don't expect you to get your ambition, just like that. In fact, it might even come up when we're going through the sex phase or relationship phase or the purpose phase, where you get a better idea of our ambition. But one thing that I know is that my ambition, I want to be a pure expression of me. I don't want it to be based on somebody else. I need to find it. It's our responsibility to get there, and very, very important. So this week, we're actually going to go on an exercise of how we can find that, how we can put into action and start living our beliefs. All right. So week 2 is all about simple actions to live your beliefs. And long story short, look, when we can take our intention, what we want, who we are, our expression, all those things, when we can take it and put it into some sort of action, man, cool things happen, right? That's when we start being rather than doing. And this is a concept that we hear a lot with coaching, but really it's very, very important that I make my life about actions that I believe in. I'm doing things that I am. And when I'm being, I don't have to try. I exist. What makes me a good coach, a good creator of things or whatever, a good dad, is me actually showing up and doing the things every day and making it a way of my life. That's the best way to learn. And if we make our life about these big deals and these hard turns and these big corners or these big events or these huge goals, man, that all was a result of existing in that way. Too much in our life, we're so results based, and I don't know, we get into all this life hacking stuff or whatever, which can be cool, but just make it a way of life. In any case, look, when we act on something, we become it. Okay, it's one of those things that is so fundamental. And what we want to do is we don't want our actions to just be aimless things. We want our actions to be based on who we are, our intention, our beliefs, and in this case, our ambition, what we really, the desire within us, that spark within us. And we also need to know that our representation of ourselves, we need to be responsible for. If we're reacting to it, if we're afraid, if we're not truly working on who is the person behind all this, the flesh and the meat suit that we're wearing and all that sort of stuff, then we're actually blindly living our life and we're being irresponsible with it. So what we're doing this week is we're going to take a look at what our ambition is, and let's design some actions around it that we can do every day. Okay, so we'll get into this when we get into the exercise, but I wanted to encase this into an example. So a lot of the things that we hear on the different calls or when we interact and come together on what ambition is, a lot of people say it's about their legacy, about their presence, about the impact that they have in the world, the imprint that they have amongst people and influence people on and all that sort of stuff, right? And so I made an example on basically this, like how could, if my ambition is my legacy, how I influence others, something that we heard over and over again on the calls, how could I find the meaning of that and how could I put it into a doable action? And not an action that is this push, this goal, this have to, this must, but something that I can do every day to make the person who does all this. So if we're going into legacy, and let's say I say legacy is a teacher, that has to do, and I need to define this myself. This is my relationship. You're not doing my ambition. You're doing your own. So I need to discover what that is. And I'm looking like, well, wait a minute, my legacy as a teacher, who do I influence? Why is that important? How can I do that best? Like, what kind of influence do I want? Where is this coming from? Like, where is my impact on the world, on the human being, on the individual in front of us? What is that? Okay, how can I put that into a doable action? in the simplest way that I can do every day. Those big deals are going to come, once a week, once a month, maybe twice a week. But what can I do every day to build that foundation of self? Well, I could be kind to somebody once a day. I can be nice. I can have a one-on-one, genuine, face-to-face interaction with another human being that is truly a representation of what I believe in my humanity. My intention is behind it. My beliefs are behind it. And I know what that reflects, and I know what the function of it is to get into an empathy, to get a smile back, to get an exchange. When I can know those things, I can start living my beliefs. Man, I want you to think about this. We go through life every day. It's really sad. Doing things that we don't even give our consent to. Reacting to things. When I'm bored, I pick up my phone. When I'm bored, I look online at, all sorts of crazy stuff, which, we'll save for another call. But there's all sorts of different things that I do without willingness. When I drive, I go into autopilot, and I just, I stop at the stop sign, I go, I move, whatever. I don't even use this beautiful thought, this beautiful spark, this beautiful intention that I was born with to move in any different way. So what we're doing now is I'm actually using my intention, my beliefs to structure what I want to do. So let's look at the actual assignment of this for living our beliefs. Okay, just as outlined above, what we want to do is we want to go through number one. What is the spark that we live for? If we haven't defined our ambition, no worries, no big deal. No big deal at all. Let's just move forward with what's a simple spark that I live for. It should be easy to answer. Don't make it difficult on yourself. This isn't about difficulty. It's about getting this into an action. Okay, so what's the intention behind that? And let's actually say the spark that I'm living for personally now. I gave the example of legacy there, but really, if I were to workshop this right now, it's for simplicity. It's for the peace. It's for the calmness, all that cool stuff, right? And basically, if I were to look at what it is that I'm, really trying to get, a sense of peace, a sense of simplicity, a sense of just normal daily functions. I truly believe for myself, and this isn't necessarily for you guys, that the more simple I act, the more true that I am, the less than I need. So it's kind of like the paleo stuff or whatever, the TSL stuff. Just be social to be social. Get into your true nature of masculinity. Get into your true nature of diet and body. And when you do that, you actually will get into your normal function. Whereas if I'm taking all these supplements and doing all this crazy stuff and, everything has to be down to a measurement, my body's probably not going to be right. My mentality's not going to be right. My social life, my emotions aren't going to be right. All this sort of things. So what's the intention behind my simplicity? It's the getting back to my true nature, getting back to the true nature of my focus, my idea, my mind, my emotions, yada, yada, yada. That's the real intention behind it. So what are 3 simple actions that do this? Well, maybe taking a walk every day, working out in my garden, tending to my plants. Maybe it's, spending time with my son. Maybe it is taking a walk with my son and my dogs or whatever it is in nature and seeing that. Maybe it's meditating, so what are 3 simple actions? I know I listed off 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 in there. But really what I want to do is I want to pick the easiest one. I think of those ones that I was talking about, like the walk or the garden would probably be the easiest. And the garden I actually do almost every day. Okay. So that's the easiest one. Okay. Tending to my garden, tending to my plants. I do it naturally. I do it already. Okay. So it doesn't need to be hard. Don't challenge yourself on this. We want success and consistency so that we can be the person and cultivate that. Simple actions to live our beliefs. Okay. So what's the function of that action? Well, it's to make sure my plants are healthy. And I want you to think of the literal function. Don't think of the function of how it's supposed to make me feel just yet. Okay, we'll get to that. The literal function is that my plants are healthy. Some need to be watered. Some might need to be debugged or something or sprayed or, some might need to be harvested or some might need to be cut down and the soil refertilized. But there's all sorts of different literal functions for me working in that yard. Okay, and what does that do? It creates healthy plants. Now, if we go further down, if I can actually live that function, and we'll get into this as a repetitious theme of what we're doing in TSL Life, to get the actual function down first, and then we can get the meaning function. Okay, so purpose, which we're going to get to in some time here, but it all ties in together. There's actually two functions to purpose. Number one, there's the literal purpose and function, like my hand might be to hold up this and grab things and whatever. That's the literal function. And then there's the meaning function. Like if I use my hands properly, or if I'm, working with my plants properly, there's a different meaning that I get. Okay. So there might even be something deeper to this number 5 question of the function of the action might be to calm me and to give me a sense of presence and space, but it's dependent upon me first doing what the actual function is. Okay. And the next thing is 6, do it every day. And that's something that I can do every day. I might be thinking it's not a big enough challenge. I'm not going to change. Change is about these big hard turns. No, not the case. Not what we're doing here at TSL Life. Those hard turns are going to come naturally for your life. Don't hunt them down. All right. Now, so there's that. Talk about it, discuss it on the calls, discuss it on the different forums and venues that we have, whether it's the Facebook or forums or whatnot. It's very important that as a community we do this. Remember, we're all on the same path. We're doing it in a different way, but how can we do it together? If we do that, amazing things happen. I can only think about so much. But when we have 12 people doing something and moving in a certain direction and they're all communicating, it becomes really amazing. Okay. If we can unify on, especially like this weekly exercise or the phase theme of ambition, you can do a lot. Now, in every TSL Life exercise, there's a couple things. And what we have here is the principles of life. Principles of life, everything, in life moves in a certain way, whether that's in nature, in biology, in your life. But the interesting thing about life is that and principles is that they tie into everything. So if I get the principle of life of conception down and I workshop it throughout my life, I should also be able to see it out there in the real world. I should be able to see it in other people's lives. And this week, we're actually going to look at birth. Now, interesting enough, with birth, there's a lot of different concepts of how we can think about this. We can think about it literally. We can think about it the birth of an idea. We can think about the birth of a certain concept, the birth of an action, or what we need to do. But let's talk about this concept of what happens in birth. And the exercise for today is how that affects us. And the exercise for this week is once a day, every day, find some time to meditate on this and see what it means to you. Now, when I say meditate, don't confuse yourself. You don't need to be a Zen monk. You can. Maybe you do standing meditation like Wu Chi Fa practice. You can ask some people on the calls about that. Maybe you're doing a walk. Maybe you're doing a walk at half pace, at a slower pace. If you haven't done that, you should try it. Maybe you're writing it out. Maybe you are visualizing. I don't care how you do the meditation, but take some time to yourself to examine what birth means to you. All right. Now, that being said, here's the cool thing. If you can examine what birth means to you, I want you to really think about it. And this is where, the group comes into play. Like birth, I've witnessed it in C-section and with a natural birth. Man, it's crazy. It's this insane thing. There's this artist, a musician, Lhasa DeSalle. She's actually passed away, but she would talk about birth in this awesome thing. I saw her live and I saw her live a few times. It was so amazing how she talked about it, how conception was this awesome thing and it gave all this potential and life fed it and everything was moving so fast and it seemed limitless. And then all of a sudden the space became too small and it was cramping you and crushing you. And then you were forced out into the world in this violent, brutal thing, but it was a new life. And that she explained that this was how her dad saw the cycle of life and that soon you would die and your body now. And it may be painful or violent or this horrible experience, but it would turn into this new thing and that the cycle of life and yada, yada, yada. You get it. And then also I would read these books, when I was like 15 or 16, I would read the Alchemist books, and the previous book to that it was by Paulo Coelho, which I should know how to say his name because I've been a fan from him since I was 15. And his first book was The Pilgrimage, and he talked about meditating. Imagine you were a seed and going through the exercise of that and sprouting and coming in and what birth was like, and to feel that and to align it with your ideas and who you were and what that meant. And actually he brought up the walking at half pace exercise as well. It's a pretty cool thing if you do it. But what I'm saying is I want you to look at your birth? How are we going to own our thoughts? How are we going to own who we are? How are we going to move into the respect and responsibility of these thoughts that we are given through life, through being a living human being, however you want to see it? And how are we going to give birth to them and honor them, give them enough food? How are we going to do that with our bodies, our minds, our thoughts, our ideas, our ambition, and so on? This is what I want you to meditate on and think about. Bring it to the calls, bring it to the different forums, bring it to the group. As I said, and I've said it a couple times, we're all on the same journey, right? We're trying to become better men. We're examining ourselves through these loose concepts of ambition, through these principles of life. And we're on this road and we're walking all over the place, finding it, picking up different things and discovering it. But when we do it together and we share the information, man, it just becomes an amazing experience. This is what TSL Life is. This is the group that you're a part of. And man, let's make it an awesome, awesome experience. In any case, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys on the calls.